After crossing a line at work, she was pregnant by the Billionaire CEO. Then he promoted her. Eleanor Brooks was 29 and living a life built on small, predictable rituals. Her apartment in Cambridge sat on a quiet street off Massachusetts Avenue, the kind of place where the rent was just reasonable enough, if you didn't mind the radiator that clanked every morning at 6. She'd learned to sleep through it. Most mornings she woke before the alarm anyway, made coffee in the French press her mother had given her 3 Christmases ago, and walked the 15 minutes to work through tree-lined streets that still felt like a postcard even after 2 years. The same route every day, past the bakery that opened too early and smelled like butter and yeast, past the guy who sat on the bench by the tea station with his dog, a massive golden retriever that never barked, past the Starbucks she never went into because there was a better place 2 blocks down, smaller, quieter, where the barista knew she wanted oat milk without asking. Eleanor liked routines. They were safe, predictable, easy. She wore her hair pulled back most days, minimal makeup, clothes that didn't demand attention, fitted trousers, simple blouses, a blazer when it was cold. She'd been told she had a nice smile, though she didn't use it much at work. Didn't need to. Her job as an administrative assistant at Reed Systems was straightforward. Organize schedules, prepare documents, keep things running smoothly in the background. She was good at being invisible in the right way. The office sat in a modern building near Kendall Square, all glass and steel and open floor plans that were supposed to make people feel collaborative, but mostly just made everyone aware of how loud they chewed. Eleanor's desk was tucked near the back, close to the conference rooms, which meant she saw people coming and going all day, but rarely got pulled into the chaos. She liked it that way. Nathaniel Reed, on the other hand, lived in a different world entirely. At 38, he was the kind of man people noticed without trying. Tall siaos, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that was starting to grey at the temples, and eyes that always seemed to be calculating something 3 steps ahead. He wore suits that fit like they'd been made for him, because they had. Nothing flashy. Charcoal, navy, black. A watch that cost more than Eleanor's rent, but didn't scream about it. He drove an Audi A6, dark grey, parked in the underground lot every morning by 7:15, never later. His office was on the top floor, corner view overlooking the Charles River, and from what Eleanor had heard, he spent most of his time either in meetings or locked in there alone, working through strategies and projections and whatever it was CEOs did when no one was watching. People respected him. Some were intimidated. A few probably hated him, the way people always hate the person in charge, but no one questioned that he knew what he was doing. Eleanor had worked at Reed Systems for almost a year before she ever spoke to him directly. It happened on a Wednesday in late September, one of those perfect New England days when the air finally felt like fall and everyone in the office seemed just a little bit lighter. Eleanor had been asked to organize documents for a board meeting, last minute of course, because someone in finance had screwed up the filing system, and now everything was a mess. She'd been in the conference room for 20 minutes, sorting through stacks of paper when the door opened. Nathaniel walked in, phone pressed to his ear, nodding at something the person on the other end was saying. He didn't look at her, just moved to the head of the table, set down his laptop, kept talking. Eleanor kept working, trying not to make noise. She reached for a folder on the far side of the table, leaned too far, and knocked a binder onto the floor. It hit with a loud smack, papers scattering. "Shit," she muttered under her breath, dropping to her knees to gather everything. Nathaniel paused mid-sentence, glanced over. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, then hung up. Eleanor's face burned. She didn't look up, just kept shoving papers back into the binder, fingers clumsy. "Sorry," she said quietly. "I'll be out of your way in a second." "It's fine." His voice was lower than she'd expected, calm, not annoyed. She finally looked up. He was watching her, standing a few feet away, hands in his pockets, not smiling, but not cold either, just present. "You're Eleanor, right?" She blinked. "Yeah, Eleanor Brooks." "You work with Jen in admin." "I do." He nodded slowly, like he was filing the information away. "You've been here about a year." "Almost, yeah." There was a pause. Not uncomfortable exactly, but weighted, like he was waiting for something, though she didn't know what. "Well," he said finally, "thanks for fixing the mess finance left us. It's my job. Still." He gave her a small, tight smile, the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes but wasn't unfriendly. Then he turned back to his laptop, effectively ending the conversation. Eleanor finished gathering the papers, stood, and left the room as quickly as she could without looking like she was fleeing. She didn't think much of it. Not at first, but over the next few weeks, she started noticing things. The way Nathaniel would glance up when she walked past his office. The way he'd pause in the hallway just for a second, when she was at the printer. The way his assistant, Caroline, started asking her to handle things that had nothing to do with her usual responsibilities. Bring reports upstairs, organize files in the executive suite, stay late to help prep for a meeting Nathaniel was leading the next morning. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing she could point to and say, "That's weird." But she felt it. That shift in the air when he was nearby. That awareness, sharp and unsettling, like static before a storm. One evening in early October, Eleanor was the last person on her floor. The office had that hollow, after-hours quiet, the kind where every sound felt too loud. She was finishing up expense reports when she heard footsteps. Nathaniel appeared in the doorway of her cubicle area, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. "Still here?" he asked. She looked up, startled. "Just wrapping up." He nodded, leaning against the wall. Didn't leave, just stood there, like he had something to say, but couldn't figure out how to start. "You work late a lot," he said finally. "Sometimes." She saved her document, closed her laptop. "You too?" "Yeah." He exhaled, rubbed the back of his neck. "Can't seem to stop." There was something in his voice, something tired, almost human, that caught her off guard. She'd never heard him sound like that before. "You should go home," she said quietly. "Get some rest." He looked at her then, really looked, and for a second she couldn't breathe. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between exhaustion and something else she didn't have a name for. "Yeah," he said. "I should." But he didn't move. Neither did she. The air between them felt impossibly heavy, like the moment before someone says something they can't take back. Eleanor's pulse kicked up without permission. She didn't understand why. He was just standing there, just looking at her. Then his phone buzzed. The spell broke. Nathaniel glanced at the screen, frowned, then looked back at her. "Have a good night, Eleanor." "You too." He left. She sat there for another 10 minutes, staring at her closed laptop, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. Nothing, she told herself. Nothing happened, but her hands were shaking, and when she finally stood to leave, she realized she'd been holding her breath. The elevator doors closed behind her with a soft hiss. Outside, the October air was cool and sharp. She walked home the long way past the river, trying to clear her head. It didn't work. That night, lying in bed, the radiator silent for once, Eleanor stared at the ceiling and replayed the moment over and over. The way he'd looked at her, the way she'd felt seen. She told herself it didn't mean anything, but somewhere deep down, she knew she was lying. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A work email. She didn't look. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, fading into the hum of the city. She closed her eyes. Sleep didn't come for a long time. Eleanor started drinking her coffee black. Not because she liked it that way, she didn't, but because the line at the cafe on Brattle Street moved faster if you ordered simple, and lately she'd been running late. The radiator in her apartment had started acting up worse than usual, hissing and banging at random hours, and she'd spent 3 nights in a row sleeping through her alarm, or not sleeping at all. She told herself it was the radiator, the noise. The fact that her upstairs neighbor had started playing guitar at midnight like he was auditioning for something. It wasn't the memory of Nathaniel standing in her cubicle area, looking at her like he was trying to solve a problem he couldn't name. It wasn't that. By mid-October, the leaves in Cambridge had turned brilliant and started falling in thick carpets across the sidewalks. Eleanor walked to work with her hands shoved in her coat pockets, breath visible in the morning air, trying to focus on anything other than the fact that she'd started noticing when Nathaniel's car was already in the lot when she arrived, which was stupid. He was always there early. That wasn't new. What was new was the way her stomach did something weird when she saw the grey Audi in its usual spot. At work, things continued as normal, mostly. Jen, her supervisor, kept assigning her tasks that required going upstairs, organizing files in the executive suite, delivering reports directly to Caroline, Nathaniel's assistant, sitting in on meetings to take notes when Caroline was out. "You're doing great," Jen had said last Tuesday, not looking up from her computer. "Nathaniel mentioned you're reliable." Eleanor had frozen mid-step. "He did?" "Yeah, keep it up." That was it, nothing else. But Eleanor had spent the rest of the day turning the comment over in her mind like a stone she couldn't put down. Nathaniel mentioned, "You're reliable, not you do good work, not you're efficient, you're reliable." Like he'd been thinking about her, talking about her. She hated how much that mattered. Wednesday afternoon. She was in the break room on the 3rd floor, the one near the conference rooms, not the main one everyone used, waiting for the coffee machine to finish its slow, gurgling process. The place was empty, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of someone's phone ringing down the hall. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through nothing, a text from her mother asking if she was coming home for Thanksgiving, a reminder about her dentist appointment, an email from her landlord about repairs that would probably never happen. The door opened. She didn't look up right away, just heard footsteps, the quiet rustle of someone moving through the space. Then she smelled it. That cologne. Subtle, clean, expensive in a way that didn't announce itself. Her pulse kicked. She looked up. Nathaniel stood by the counter, reaching for a mug from the cabinet. He glanced over, registered her presence, and gave a small nod. "Eleanor." "Hi." God, that sounded stupid. Hi, like she was 12. He poured himself coffee, black, no sugar. She noticed that, filed it away without meaning to. "How's your day?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "Fine, busy." "Yeah." He took a sip, grimaced slightly. "This coffee is terrible." "It really is." A pause. Not uncomfortable, but weighted, like every silence between them had become something she had to navigate carefully. "You drink it black now," he said, nodding toward her cup. She blinked. "What? Your coffee? You used to get it with milk." "From that place on Brattle." Her breath caught. He'd noticed that. It's faster this way," she said, trying to sound casual. "The line moves quicker." Makes sense. But the way he was looking at her, steady, focused, like she was the only thing in the room worth paying attention to, made her feel like nothing she said would sound casual again. "You should try the place on Church Street," he said. "Better coffee and they're fast." "I'll keep that in mind." Another pause, longer this time. Nathaniel set his mug down, crossed his arms. "Can I ask you something?" Her stomach dropped. "Sure." "Do I make you uncomfortable?" The question landed like a stone in water. She stared at him, trying to figure out what the right answer was, what the safe answer was. "No," she said finally. "Why would you think that?" "You leave rooms when I walk in. You don't look at me in meetings. And just now, when I came in here, you looked like you wanted to disappear." Shit. Her face burned. She wanted to deny it, but he wasn't wrong. "I'm not." She stopped, tried again. "I'm not uncomfortable. I just don't want to be in your way." "You're not in my way." The words were quiet, almost too quiet, like he'd thought about saying them for a while. Eleanor's hands tightened around her coffee cup. The break room suddenly felt too small, the air too close. "Okay," she said softly. Nathaniel didn't move, just kept looking at her with that same unreadable expression, something caught between exhaustion and restraint. "I'm trying to be professional," he said. "I need you to know that." "I know. But I'm also trying to be honest." He exhaled, ran a hand through his hair. "And honestly, I don't know what I'm doing here." Eleanor's heart was hammering now. She didn't know what to say, didn't know if she should say anything at all. "I should go," she managed. "Yeah." But he didn't step aside, didn't move to let her pass. The space between them was maybe 3 feet. It felt like nothing. It felt like everything. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She jumped, breaking eye contact. "Sorry," she muttered, pulling it out. A text from Jen, asking where the expense reports were. When she looked up again, Nathaniel had stepped back. The moment, whatever it had been, was gone. "I'll see you around," he said. She nodded, grabbed her coffee and walked out. Her hands didn't stop shaking until she was back at her desk. That weekend, Eleanor tried to reset. She cleaned her apartment, scrubbing the kitchen counter until her hands hurt, did laundry, called her mother and talked about nothing for 40 minutes, went for a run along the river, even though she hated running, just to get out of her own head. It didn't work. Sunday night, lying on her couch with the TV on low and a glass of wine she wasn't really drinking, she replayed the break room conversation for the 100th time. "I'm trying to be professional, but I'm also trying to be honest. What did that even mean?" She knew what it meant, she just didn't want to admit it. Her phone lit up on the coffee table. She grabbed it, expecting another text from her mother or maybe Jen with some work thing that couldn't wait until Monday. It wasn't either of them. It was an email from Nathaniel. Subject line, "Quick question." Her stomach flipped. She opened it. "Eleanor, I'm reorganizing some admin responsibilities for Q4. Would you be available for a quick meeting tomorrow morning? 8 a.m. my office. Thanks, Nathaniel." She read it 3 times. It was professional, completely normal, the kind of email a CEO sends to an employee all the time, except it wasn't. Because he could have asked Jen, could have scheduled it through Caroline, could have sent it during work hours instead of 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. Eleanor set her phone down, picked it up again, typed a response. "Sure, I'll be there." She hit send before she could overthink it. Then she sat there, staring at the screen, waiting for the little dots that meant he was typing back. They didn't come. She finished her wine, turned off the TV, went to bed. Sleep didn't happen. At 7:30 the next morning, Eleanor stood outside Nathaniel's office, smoothing down her blouse for the 3rd time. Her palms were sweating. She told herself it was just nerves, just a normal work meeting. Caroline wasn't at her desk yet. The floor was quiet. She knocked. "Come in," Nathaniel's voice called from inside. She opened the door. He was standing by the window, looking out at the river. The morning light caught the grey in his hair, made him look older, tired. "Hey," he said, turning. "Thanks for coming early." "No problem." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. She sat. He didn't. For a moment he just stood there, hands in his pockets, like he was deciding something. "I'm going to be honest with you," he said finally. "This isn't really about Q4 responsibilities." Her breath hitched. "Okay. I needed to talk to you, alone, without the whole office watching." "About what?" He moved closer, stopped a few feet from her chair, close enough that she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands flexed at his sides. "About whatever this is," he said quietly. "Because I can't keep pretending it's not happening." Eleanor's pulse was racing. She didn't trust herself to speak. "I've spent 3 weeks trying to convince myself this is just... I don't know. Proximity, loneliness, something I can ignore." He shook his head. "But I can't, and I think you feel it too." She did. God, she did. But saying it out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. "Nathaniel, I'm not asking you for anything," he interrupted. "I just need to know if I'm losing my mind here." The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open inside her. "You're not," she whispered. The air between them went still. He didn't move, neither did she. Outside, a door slammed. Voices echoed in the hallway, the workday beginning. Nathaniel stepped back, breaking the moment. "We should." He cleared his throat. "We should be careful. I know. This is complicated. I know." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Go," he said softly, "before someone sees you here." Eleanor stood, legs unsteady, and walked to the door. Her hand was on the handle when he spoke again. "Eleanor." She turned. "I meant what I said. I'm not asking for anything. But if you want to get dinner sometime, just dinner, let me know." Her heart was in her throat. "Okay," she managed. Then she left. The elevator doors closed. She exhaled. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Church Street Cafe, Friday, 7 p.m. She stared at it, then typed back, "Okay." The doors opened on her floor. She stepped out. Everything had changed. And they both knew it. Friday came too fast, and not fast enough. Eleanor changed her outfit 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a soft grey sweater, the kind that looked effortless, but had actually taken 20 minutes to pick out. She left her hair down, added a coat of mascara she immediately regretted, then put on anyway. It's just dinner, she told herself, just 2 people eating food, except it wasn't. And they both knew it. The Church Street Cafe sat tucked between a bookstore and a wine shop, the kind of place locals went to avoid tourists. Exposed brick walls, mismatched wooden tables, string lights that gave everything a warm glow without trying too hard. Eleanor had walked past it 100 times but never gone in. She arrived at 7:05, late on purpose, didn't want to seem too eager. Nathaniel was already there. He sat at a corner table away from the window, dressed in dark slacks and a charcoal sweater with the sleeves pushed up. No tie, no watch. He looked different outside the office, younger somehow, or maybe just less guarded. He stood when he saw her. "Hey," he said. "Hi." God, this was awkward. They sat. A waitress appeared almost immediately, cheerful and oblivious, asking about drinks. Eleanor ordered wine. Nathaniel got whiskey, neat. When the waitress left, silence settled between them. "So," Eleanor started. "So." She laughed, surprising herself. "This is weird, right?" "Totally weird," he admitted, a small smile breaking through. "I don't actually do this." "What? Eat dinner?" "Take employees to dinner." He paused. That came out wrong. "Little bit. I mean—" He stopped, rubbed his face. "I'm screwing this up already." "You're doing fine." Their drinks arrived. Eleanor took a sip of wine that was too big, felt it burn down her throat. Nathaniel watched her, something softer in his expression now. "You nervous?" "Are you?" "Terrified." The honesty of it caught her off guard. She'd expected smooth, confident, the version of him everyone at work saw. Instead, he just looked human. "Why?" she asked quietly. He considered the question, turning his glass in slow circles on the table. "Because I haven't done this in a long time, and because you're—" He stopped, started again. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone easier to ignore." Her heart did something complicated. The waitress came back. They ordered without really looking at the menu, pasta for her, steak for him. When she left again, Nathaniel leaned forward slightly. "Tell me something," he said. "Like what?" "Anything. Something I don't know from your employee file." Eleanor thought about it. "I hate running, but I do it anyway. I call my mom every Sunday, even though we never have anything to talk about. And I've been wearing the same winter coat for 5 years because I'm too cheap to buy a new one. That's 3 things. Overachiever." He smiled. Actually smiled. It changed his whole face. "Your turn," she said. He took a drink. "I can't sleep most nights. Haven't been able to for years. I just lie there thinking about everything that could go wrong at work, with the company, with—" He gestured vaguely. "Everything." "That sounds exhausting." "It is. Have you tried, I don't know, meditation or something?" "I've tried everything." He shook his head. "Nothing works. My brain just doesn't shut off." Eleanor wanted to reach across the table, didn't. "What about you?" He asked. "You sleep okay?" "Not lately." "Yeah?" She hesitated, then decided to be honest. "Not since that night you came to my desk." His expression shifted. Something darker, heavier. "Eleanor, I'm not blaming you," she said quickly. I'm saying I get it. The not sleeping thing." Their food arrived. They ate slowly, the conversation drifting to safer topics. Work. Mostly. The company, projects, things that felt normal. But underneath there was that current, that awareness that neither of them could name, but both of them felt. An hour passed, then another. The restaurant had emptied out around them. The waitress brought the check without being asked, a polite hint. Nathaniel paid. Eleanor didn't argue. Outside, the October air was sharp and cold. The street was quiet. Just a few people walking by, collars turned up against the wind. "Where'd you park?" Nathaniel asked. "I walked." "From your place? It's not far." He frowned. "It's late. I'll be fine. Let me drive you." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to." His voice was softer now. "But I want to." She didn't argue again. His car was parked 2 blocks away. They walked in silence, hands shoved in pockets, the space between them careful and deliberate. When they reached the Audi, he unlocked it, held the passenger door open. She slid in. The interior smelled like leather and that cologne she'd started recognizing everywhere. He got in, started the engine, but didn't pull out right away. "Where to?" he asked. She gave him her address. He nodded, pulled into the empty street. The drive took 7 minutes. Neither of them spoke. When he stopped in front of her building, a 3-story walk-up with peeling paint and a crooked front step, he put the car in park, but left it running. "Thanks for dinner," Eleanor said. "Yeah." She should have gotten out, should have said goodnight and walked away and let this be what it was, just dinner. Nothing more, but she didn't move, neither did he. "Eleanor," he said quietly. She turned to look at him. The expression on his face was raw, unguarded, like every wall he'd been holding up had finally cracked. "I need to tell you something," he said. Her pulse kicked. "Okay. This isn't casual for me. I don't know what it is, but it's not casual." She couldn't breathe. "And I know this is complicated," he continued. "I know all the reasons this is a bad idea, but I can't—" He stopped, jaw tight. "I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." The car was warm. Too warm. Eleanor's hands were shaking. "What are you asking me?" she whispered. "I don't know." He looked at her, something desperate in his eyes. "I don't know what I'm asking. I just know I can't walk away from this. From you." The silence stretched. Then Eleanor did something she'd been afraid to do for weeks. She leaned across the console and kissed him. It wasn't soft, wasn't tentative. It was a release. Nathaniel froze for half a second, then his hand came up to cup her face, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, urgent and clumsy and real. When they finally broke apart, both of them breathing hard, Eleanor's forehead rested against his. "We shouldn't," she started. "I know. I know." But neither of them pulled away. "Come upstairs," she whispered. Nathaniel went still. "Eleanor, please." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Her apartment was small and cluttered in the way places get when someone's been too distracted to care. Mail on the counter, shoes by the door, a mug of cold coffee from that morning still sitting on the coffee table. Eleanor didn't apologize for it, just locked the door behind them and turned to face him. Nathaniel stood in the middle of her living room, looking completely out of place and somehow exactly where he should be. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. She crossed the space between them. "Are you?" He didn't answer with words, just pulled her close and kissed her again, slower this time, like he was memorizing the shape of her mouth, the taste of wine still on her tongue. Her hands found the hem of his sweater. He helped her pull it over his head, then reached for hers. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation, just the two of them, finally letting go of everything they'd been holding back. After, they lay tangled in her sheets, the room dark, except for the streetlight filtering through the window. Eleanor's head rested on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. Nathaniel's hand traced lazy circles on her back. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "I don't know." "That's not reassuring." "I know." He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "But I'm not walking away. Not from this. Even though it's complicated? Especially because it's complicated." She smiled against his skin. "That doesn't make sense." "None of this makes sense." His voice was rough, tired, but it's the truth. Eleanor closed her eyes, letting herself sink into the moment, into him. "Stay tonight," she whispered. "Okay." Outside, a car alarm went off. Someone yelled for it to shut up. The radiator clanked. Nathaniel's breathing evened out. Eleanor lay awake a little longer, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what she'd just done. What they'd just done. She should have felt guilty, scared, something, but all she felt was right. She woke to grey morning light and an empty bed. Panic hit first. Then she heard the sound of running water from the bathroom. Nathaniel's phone buzzed on her nightstand. She didn't look. A few minutes later, he emerged, hair damp, wearing last night's clothes. He sat on the edge of the bed. Hey, I have to go, meeting at 8. Okay. He leaned down, kissed her softly. This wasn't a mistake. I didn't say it was. I know, but I needed to say it anyway. He stood, grabbed his keys, paused at the door. I'll see you Monday. Yeah. The door closed behind him. Eleanor lay there for a long time, staring at the space where he'd been. Her phone buzzed. A text. I meant what I said. Not walking away. She smiled, typed back. Good. Outside, the city woke up around her. Everything had changed, and there was no going back. Monday morning felt like walking into a different world. Eleanor arrived at work 15 minutes early, coffee in hand from the place on Church Street, the one Nathaniel had recommended. She'd gone there on purpose, some small way of holding on to Friday night without anyone else knowing. The office hummed with its usual Monday chaos, phones ringing, the copy machine jamming on the second floor, someone's birthday cake sitting in the break room with a note that said, "Help yourself" in cheerful marker. Everything was normal except nothing was. Eleanor kept her head down at her desk, sorting through emails she wasn't really reading. Her hands kept shaking. She'd reapplied lip gloss twice in the bathroom, checked her reflection 4 times, and still felt like everyone could see what had happened just by looking at her. Around 9:30, Jen appeared at her cubicle. "Morning," Jen said, dropping a stack of folders on Eleanor's desk. "Nathaniel needs these filed upstairs. 3rd cabinet right side." Eleanor's stomach flipped. "Okay. You good? You look kind of pale." "I'm fine, just didn't sleep great," Jen shrugged. "Join the club. Half the office looks like zombies today." She walked away. Eleanor stared at the folders for a solid minute before standing. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt endless. When the doors opened, Caroline's desk was empty, probably in a meeting. The hallway was quiet. Nathaniel's office door was closed. Eleanor knocked softly. "Come in." She opened the door. He was standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear, frowning at whatever the person on the other end was saying. When he saw her, his expression shifted and something quick and unreadable crossing his face before he masked it. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, then hung up. Silence. Eleanor held up the folders. "Jen said you needed these filed." "Right. Yeah, just leave them on the desk." She set them down, started to leave. "Eleanor?" She stopped, didn't turn around. "Close the door." Her pulse kicked. She pushed the door shut, the quiet click impossibly loud. When she finally turned, he was leaning against the edge of his desk, arms crossed, watching her. "How are you?" he asked quietly. "I'm okay." "You sure? Are you?" A small smile tugged at his mouth. "Honestly? I have no idea." She stepped closer, just a little. "This is really weird, right? Being here, acting like nothing happened. It's the weirdest thing I've ever done." "Good. I thought it was just me." He moved toward her, closed the space between them until there was barely a foot separating them, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the fatigue in his eyes. "I haven't been able to think about anything else," he said. "Me neither. We need to be careful here at work." "I know." "If people find out?" "I know, Nathaniel." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so intimate, so casual that it made her chest ache. "Come over tonight," he said. "What?" "My place. I'll cook. We can just talk. Figure this out." Eleanor's heart hammered. "Okay." 7? "Okay." Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. They both froze. Nathaniel stepped back, just as Caroline's voice called out, "Nathaniel! You in there?" "Yeah," he called back. Then quieter to Eleanor, "Go." She left quickly, passing Caroline in the hallway with a polite nod. Her hands didn't stop shaking until she was back at her desk. Nathaniel's apartment was in a converted warehouse building near Kendall Square, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Minimalist furniture, expensive but not showy, the kind of place that felt both impressive and empty at the same time. Eleanor stood in the middle of his living room, taking it in. "This is," she started. "Too much? Different?" He smiled, setting down 2 glasses of wine on the coffee table. "It's just a place. I'm not here much anyway." "That's sad." "Yeah." He sat on the couch, gestured for her to join him. "It is." She sat, leaving a careful space between them. He noticed, closed it. "I'm not good at this," he admitted. "At what?" "This, whatever this is. I don't know how to just be with someone." "You're doing fine." "I ordered Thai food. Hope that's okay." "It's perfect." They ate on the couch, talking about nothing important. Movies they'd seen. Books neither of them had time to read. The fact that Eleanor had never left the East Coast and Nathaniel had lived in Seattle for 3 years and hated it. It felt normal, easy, which made it terrifying. After dinner, Nathaniel pulled her closer. She rested her head on his shoulder, letting herself sink into the moment. "What are we doing?" she asked quietly. "I don't know." "That's not a plan." "I know." She tilted her head to look at him. "Are you scared?" "Terrified." He kissed her forehead. "But I meant what I said. I'm not walking away." "Even though this is complicated?" "Especially because it's complicated." She smiled. "You said that before." "It's still true." They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped up in each other, the city lights flickering beyond the windows. Eventually, Nathaniel stood, held out his hand. "Stay," he said. Eleanor took his hand. The next few weeks blurred together in a strange, careful dance. At work, they were professional, distant. Eleanor delivered reports. Nathaniel sent emails. They spoke in meetings when necessary, always with other people around. But after hours, everything changed. Dinner at his place. Late-night drives through the city. Weekends spent in her apartment, tangled in sheets that smelled like both of them now. They were careful, so careful. No one knew. Or at least, Eleanor told herself no one knew. Then November came. And with it, a feeling she couldn't quite name. A heaviness in her stomach. Exhaustion that didn't match her workload. A sensitivity to smells that made the office coffee unbearable. She ignored it for a week, then another. By the 3rd week, she couldn't ignore it anymore. She bought the test on a Tuesday evening from a CVS 3 neighborhoods away from her apartment. Paid in cash, avoided eye contact with the cashier. At home, she sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the box. This wasn't possible. They'd been careful. Mostly. Her hands shook as she opened it. 3 minutes, the longest 3 minutes of her life. When the timer on her phone went off, she couldn't look at first, just sat there, breathing too fast, heart hammering. Finally, she looked. 2 lines. Positive. The room tilted. She sat there for 20 minutes, staring at the test, waiting for it to change. For this to be wrong. It didn't change. Eventually, she stood on shaky legs, walked to the living room, sat on the couch. Her phone sat on the coffee table. She picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. Opened her messages, stared at Nathaniel's name. What was she supposed to say? How did you tell someone this? Her hands hovered over the keyboard. Then she set the phone down. Not like this. Not over text. She needed to see his face. Needed to know what he was thinking before her world completely fell apart. She grabbed her coat, keys, and left. Nathaniel opened his door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking surprised. "Eleanor, what are you... Can I come in?" He stepped aside immediately. "Of course, what's wrong?" She walked into his living room, heart racing, trying to find the words. Nathaniel closed the door, moved toward her. "You're scaring me. What happened?" Eleanor turned to face him. "Just say it. Just tell him." "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air. Nathaniel went completely still, his face drained of color. "What?" I'm pregnant, she repeated, voice shaking. I took a test tonight, it's positive. He stared at her, didn't speak. The silence stretched. Eleanor's chest tightened. Say something, please. Nathaniel ran a hand over his face, sat down on the couch, stared at nothing. Are you sure? He asked finally. I took 2 tests, both positive. Another silence. Eleanor felt tears burning behind her eyes. I know this isn't what we planned. I know this is... I need a minute. His voice was tight, controlled. I need a minute. He stood abruptly, walked to the window, pressed his forehead against the glass. Eleanor stood frozen in the middle of his living room, watching his shoulders rise and fall with each breath. Seconds ticked by, then minutes. Finally, she spoke. I can go. If you need time to... No. He didn't turn around. Don't go. Nathaniel, I'm not handling this well. His voice cracked. I'm sorry, I don't know how to... He stopped, took a shaky breath. Eleanor moved closer. You don't have to have all the answers right now. But I should. He finally turned to face her. His eyes were red. You come here, terrified, and I just... freeze, like a fucking coward. You're not a coward. I've spent my whole life being in control, building this company, making decisions, and now... He gestured helplessly. I have no idea what I'm doing. Eleanor's throat tightened. Neither do I. But you're here. You showed up. You told me. His voice broke. And I can't even... He sat back down heavily, put his head in his hands. Eleanor sat beside him, didn't touch him, just waited. I'm terrified, he said finally, voice muffled. Me too. I don't know how to be a father. I don't know if I can do this. My dad was never around. He worked constantly. I barely knew him growing up. He looked up at her. What if I'm like him? What if I... You won't be. You don't know that. I know you. She took his hand carefully. I know you showed up for me every single time I needed you. I know you're here right now, even though you're scared. He squeezed her hand so tight it hurt. I don't want to screw this up, he whispered. Then don't. They sat in silence. Outside, a car horn blared. The city hummed on, indifferent. After a long moment, Nathaniel spoke again. I need you to know something. Okay, I'm not running. Even if I'm terrified, even if I have no idea what I'm doing. He looked at her, eyes raw. I'm not walking away from you or from this. Are you sure? No. His honesty cut through the air. I'm not sure about anything right now, but I know I want to try. I want to figure this out. With you. It wasn't the confident declaration she'd hoped for, but somehow it felt more real. She cried into his shoulder, weeks of tension and fear and exhaustion pouring out all at once. When she finally pulled back, Nathaniel's jaw was tight, eyes distant, like he was still processing, still trying to figure out what came next. What are you thinking? She asked. He was quiet for a long moment. I'm thinking this changes everything, he said, and I'm thinking I need to step up. What does that mean? It means I'm not running. It means whatever you need, whatever you decide, I'm here. You don't have to... Yes, I do. His voice was firm now, but she could hear the fear underneath. This isn't just about you. It's about us. And I'm not walking away from that. Eleanor searched his face. Even if you're terrified? Especially because I'm terrified. He pulled her close again. We'll figure it out. Together. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe they could do this, but the fear in his eyes was still there, and so was hers. Nathaniel pulled her close again. Neither of them spoke. Outside, the city hummed on, indifferent. Inside, everything had changed. The radiator hissed in the corner. Eleanor closed her eyes. Tomorrow they'd have to figure out what came next, but tonight they just held each other and hoped it would be enough. Eleanor called in sick on Wednesday, not because she felt sick, though the nausea was real enough, but because she couldn't face the office, couldn't sit at her desk pretending everything was normal when her entire life had just shifted off its axis. She spent the day on her couch staring at the ceiling, trying to process what happened. Pregnant. The word felt foreign in her mouth, like something that happened to other people. People who were ready, people who had plans. Her phone buzzed constantly, texts from Jen asking if she was okay, an email from Caroline about rescheduling a meeting, and Nathaniel checking in every few hours. How are you feeling? Do you need anything? Can I come over tonight? She didn't respond to most of them. Just lay there numb. Around 6 there was a knock at her door. She almost didn't answer, but the knocking persisted. When she finally opened it, Nathaniel stood there with a bag from the Thai place they'd ordered from weeks ago. "You weren't answering," he said simply. "I know." "Can I come in?" She stepped aside. He set the food on her counter, then turned to face her. His eyes were tired, shadows underneath. He looked like he hadn't slept either. "We need to talk," he said. "I know." Actually talk, not just process separately and hope it works out. Eleanor nodded, throat tight. They sat on her couch, the same couch where this had all started in a way, where she'd first let herself believe this could be something real. Nathaniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I spent all day thinking about this." "Yeah? About what this means. For you. For me. For us." He looked at her. "And I need you to know something." "Okay. I'm all in. Whatever you decide. If you want to keep it, if you don't, I'm here. But if you do keep it..." He paused. "I want to do this right." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not hiding this. I'm not pretending it didn't happen." Eleanor's stomach dropped. "Nathaniel, I know what you're going to say. That it's complicated, that we work together, that people will talk." He shook his head. "They will, and we'll deal with it. But I'm not letting you go through this alone. You can't just..." She stopped, tried again. "You're the CEO. I'm an admin assistant. Do you understand what this looks like?" "I do." "And you're okay with that?" "No." His voice was firm. "I'm not okay with any of this being complicated, but I'm less okay with walking away." Eleanor felt tears burning again. "I'm scared." "Me too." "What if this ruins everything?" "What if it doesn't?" She looked at him. Really looked. At the exhaustion in his face, the determination in his eyes. This man who could have anything, anyone, and was choosing this, choosing her. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Neither do I." He took her hand. "But we'll figure it out. Together." The word hung between them. Together. It sounded impossible. It sounded right. "Okay," Eleanor said finally. "Yeah? Yeah?" Nathaniel pulled her close. She buried her face in his shoulder, breathing him in. They stayed like that for a long time. Eventually he pulled back. "We should eat something. You need to eat." "I'm not hungry." "I know, but you need to anyway." They ate Thai food on her couch, mostly in silence. The noodles had gone cold, but neither of them cared. After, Nathaniel cleaned up while Eleanor watched from the couch, too tired to help. "Stay tonight," she said when he came back. "I was planning on it." By Friday, Eleanor was back at work. The office felt different now, smaller, like everyone could see what was happening just by looking at her. She kept her head down, focused on her tasks, avoided the break room. Around 11, Jen appeared at her desk. "Nathaniel wants to see you," she said. Eleanor's stomach flipped. "What?" "Upstairs." "Now apparently." Jen frowned. "You in trouble or something?" "No, I don't think so." "Well, don't keep him waiting." Eleanor stood on shaky legs and headed to the elevator. When she reached his office, the door was open. Caroline waved her through. Nathaniel sat at his desk, looking professional and distant, the CEO version of himself. "Close the door," he said. She did. "Sit." She sat. He leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. For a moment, she wondered if he'd changed his mind, if the reality of this had finally hit him, and he was about to tell her he couldn't do it after all. Then he spoke. "I'm restructuring the admin department." Eleanor blinked. "What?" "You're being moved. Promoted, technically. You'll report to the VP of operations now, not Jen. Different responsibilities, better pay. Nathaniel, it's not because of this, not entirely. He held up a hand. You've been doing work above your pay grade for months. Jen's been swamped, and you've picked up the slack. This is overdue. People will talk, let them. It'll look like I'm promoting someone who deserves it. His voice was firm. Eleanor, I can't have you reporting to someone who reports to me. Not with this, it's a conflict of interest. This is the cleanest solution. She stared at him. You've really thought about this? I've thought about nothing else. And what about us? What do we tell people? Nothing, yet. He stood, moved around the desk. We keep things professional here. No one needs to know what's happening outside of work. Not until you're ready. And when I start showing? Then we deal with it. He sat on the edge of the desk. But one step at a time. Eleanor exhaled slowly. This is really happening. Yeah, it is. She looked up at him. Are you sure about this? Stop asking me that. I'm serious. So am I. He reached out, almost touched her hand, then stopped himself. Wrong place. I'm not going anywhere, Eleanor. I need you to believe that. She wanted to. God, she wanted to. Okay, she said finally. Okay. She stood to leave. At the door, she paused. Nathaniel. Yeah. Thank you. He nodded. Go tell Jen. She'll have the paperwork ready by Monday. The next few weeks were a blur of changes. Eleanor's new role kept her busy, managing schedules, coordinating with department heads, handling projects that actually required her to think. The pay bump was significant, enough that she could finally consider getting a new winter coat. But the pregnancy was harder to hide than she'd expected. The morning sickness hit around week 7, not just in the mornings, all day. Unpredictable waves of nausea that left her gripping the edge of her desk, breathing through her nose, praying no one noticed. She kept crackers in her drawer, ginger tea in her bag, left meetings abruptly with mumbled excuses about phone calls. Jen noticed. You okay? You've been looking pale. Just a stomach bug, Eleanor lied. I'm fine. But she wasn't fine. One afternoon, the nausea hit so hard she barely made it to the bathroom. She locked herself in a stall, head spinning, trying not to throw up. When she finally emerged, Caroline was at the sink, washing her hands. Their eyes met in the mirror. You good? Caroline asked carefully. Yeah, just not feeling great. Caroline dried her hands slowly. If you ever need to leave early, just let me know. I can cover. Eleanor blinked. You don't have to. I know. Caroline gave her a small, knowing smile, then left. Eleanor stood there, staring at her reflection. She looked exhausted, pale, like someone barely holding it together. That night, she told Nathaniel about the sickness. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He looked stricken. I didn't want to worry you. Elle, I'm already worried. Constantly. He ran a hand through his hair. What can I do? What do you need? I don't know. Ginger helps. Sometimes. The next morning, her desk had a care package waiting. Ginger candies, saltines, herbal tea. A note in Nathaniel's handwriting. Let me know if you need anything else. She cried right there at her desk. At work, they were careful, professional, distant. But after hours, Nathaniel was there. Always. He started researching obsessively. Eleanor would wake at 2 a.m. to find him on his laptop, reading articles about fetal development, pregnancy nutrition, how to know if something was wrong. You need to sleep, she'd say. I will. Just one more article. He bought books, highlighted passages, made notes in the margins. Did you know the baby can hear us now? He said one night, hand on her still flat stomach. That's not for a few more weeks. The book says 16 weeks. You're 15. You're tracking this. Of course I'm tracking this. He looked at her like it was obvious. I have a spreadsheet. Despite everything, Eleanor laughed. You made a spreadsheet? With milestones, and appointment dates, and a list of things we need to buy. He showed her his phone. I color-coded it. She kissed him, hard. What was that for? For being you. The ultrasound at 12 weeks was supposed to be routine. They sat in the waiting room, Nathaniel gripping an outdated magazine he wasn't reading, Eleanor's leg bouncing with nerves. "Eleanor Brooks!" the tech called. They followed her into the dim room. Eleanor lay back on the exam table, Nathaniel standing beside her, holding her hand so tight it hurt. The tech squeezed cold gel onto Eleanor's stomach. This might be a little uncomfortable. She pressed the wand down, moved it slowly. The screen flickered, grainy, black and white, then, there, a shape, tiny, moving. "There's your baby," the tech said, smiling. Eleanor couldn't breathe. Nathaniel leaned closer to the screen, eyes wide. "Is that the head? See, and here's the body, arms, legs. It looked like nothing, it looked like everything. And that," the tech pointed, "is the heartbeat. A rapid flutter on the screen. Fast, strong, real." Eleanor felt tears streaming down her face. Nathaniel's hand tightened around hers. When she looked up at him, his eyes were wet too. "That's our baby," he whispered. "Yeah. It's real. Yeah." They sat there in silence, watching the screen, listening to the heartbeat fill the room. The tech printed out photos, handed them over. "Everything looks great. See you in 4 weeks." In the parking lot, they sat in Nathaniel's car, staring at the ultrasound pictures. "I can't believe that's inside you right now," he said. "I know. It's so small. I know." He looked at her. "We're really doing this. We really are." He kissed her forehead. "I'm still terrified." "Me too. But also, I know." They drove home in silence. But it was a different kind of silence now. The kind that felt like hope. They started talking about names around week 20. Eleanor was showing now. Not obvious to strangers, but undeniable under her clothes. She'd bought new pants, started wearing looser tops. One night, curled up on the couch at Nathaniel's place, he opened his laptop. "I made a list," he said. "Of course you did." He showed her. "A spreadsheet, naturally. I separated them by gender, and ranked them by various criteria." Eleanor laughed. "You ranked baby names? By meaning, origin, and how they sound with Reed." He looked defensive. "I was being thorough." She scrolled through. "Some of these are interesting." "Which ones do you like?" "I don't know. I haven't really thought about it." "We should start thinking about it." Eleanor closed the laptop. "What if we don't find out the gender? Keep it a surprise." Nathaniel frowned. "But then how do we plan?" "We can plan for both, have 2 names ready." He considered this. "Okay, 2 names." They spent the next week throwing out suggestions, debating, disagreeing. "What about Violet?" Eleanor said one night. Nathaniel looked up from his book. "Violet?" "It was my grandmother's name, Violet May." He was quiet for a moment, testing it out. "Violet Reed." "Violet May Reed, technically. I like it." He smiled. "It's but soft, but strong." "What about for a boy?" They debated boy names for another 2 weeks, settled on James Oliver Reed, after Nathaniel's grandfather. "So," Eleanor said one night, hand on her growing belly, "Violet May or James Oliver?" "Violet May or James Oliver," Nathaniel repeated. The baby kicked, sharp, sudden. Eleanor gasped, grabbed Nathaniel's hand, pressed it to her stomach. "Wait, feel that." They waited. Another kick. Nathaniel's eyes went wide. "Was that?" "Yeah. Oh my God." "I know." He kept his hand there, waiting for more movement. When it came again, he laughed. Actually laughed, bright and surprised and full of wonder. "Hi, baby," he whispered to her stomach. "Violet or James, whoever you are, we can't wait to meet you." Eleanor's eyes burned. Everything was changing, and somehow that was okay. By December, the secret was getting harder to keep. Not because Eleanor was showing, she wasn't, not yet, but because the way Nathaniel looked at her had changed. Softer, more protective, and people noticed. "You and the boss seem chummy," one of the finance guys said in the break room one afternoon. Eleanor's blood ran cold. "What?" "Just saying. He's been in a better mood lately, ever since you got promoted." "It's not." She stopped, smiled tightly. "I'm just doing my job." "Sure." The guy grabbed his coffee and left. Eleanor leaned against the counter, heart pounding. That night, she told Nathaniel. People are noticing, she said. They were at his place, sitting on the couch, her feet in his lap. Yeah, he said. I figured they would eventually. What do we do? He was quiet for a moment. Then, we make it official. With HR. What? We file the disclosure, make it formal. So if anyone has questions, there's a paper trail showing we did everything by the book. Eleanor sat up. And then what? Everyone just knows? They already know, Elle, or they're starting to. He took her hand. At least this way we control the narrative. We're not hiding. We're being transparent. That doesn't mean people won't judge. They will, some of them. His voice was firm. But I don't care, do you? Did she? A month ago the answer would have been yes. Absolutely yes. But now she was carrying his child. Now he'd shown up for her in every way that mattered. Now this was real, whether people approved or not. No, she said. I don't care. Good. The next week, HR sent out a brief email. As part of our commitment to transparency and compliance, we want to inform the team that Eleanor Brooks and Nathaniel Reed have disclosed a personal relationship. Appropriate steps have been taken to ensure no conflict of interest, including reporting structure adjustments. If anyone has questions or concerns, please contact HR directly. That was it. No drama, no speeches, just facts. But the office exploded anyway. Within an hour, Eleanor could feel the shift. People staring when she walked by, conversations stopping when she entered the break room, a few supportive smiles from co-workers she barely knew, more cold shoulders from people she'd thought were friends. Someone left a printed article about workplace power dynamics on her desk. She threw it away without reading it. Jen pulled her aside at lunch. You okay? Eleanor nodded, not trusting her voice. For what it's worth, Jen said quietly, I think you've earned everything you've gotten here. Don't let anyone tell you different. That night, Eleanor cried in Nathaniel's arms. It's worse than I thought, she admitted. I know. People think I slept my way into a promotion. Let them think what they want. He tilted her chin up. You know the truth. I know the truth. That's what matters. Is it? Yeah. His voice was certain. It is. The whispers continued for weeks, but slowly, painfully, they faded. Eleanor kept her head down, worked harder than ever, proved herself in every meeting, every project, every interaction, and gradually people stopped talking. Or at least they stopped talking where she could hear them. A few weeks later, back at her apartment, Eleanor lay in bed with Nathaniel beside her. I didn't think it would be this hard, as she said. What? People knowing, the looks, the comments. He turned to face her. Do you regret it? No. She was surprised by how quickly she answered. I wish it was easier. Me too. He covered her hand with his. But we did the right thing, the honest thing. Eleanor rested her hand on her stomach, still flat but not for much longer. We're really doing this, she said quietly. We really are. What if I'm terrible at it? You won't be. You don't know that. I know you. He covered her hand with his. And I know you're stronger than you think. She wanted to believe him. Maybe she was starting to. Outside, snow had started to fall, the first real snow of the season, the kind that made the city look clean and quiet. Nathaniel's breathing evened out beside her. Eleanor stayed awake a little longer, watching the snow fall past the window. Everything had changed. But maybe that was okay. Maybe change wasn't something to be afraid of. Maybe it was just the beginning. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from her mother. Haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay? Eleanor smiled, typed back. Yeah, Mom. Everything's okay. I'll call you Sunday. Have a lot to tell you. She set the phone down, closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, sleep came easy. 6 months later. The apartment on Brattle Street was bigger than Eleanor's old place. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors that didn't creak, windows that actually kept the cold out. Nathaniel had found it in March, signed the lease without telling her, then handed her the keys with a simple, "We need more space." She'd cried. Not because of the apartment itself, but because of what it meant. We. By late May, Boston had shaken off winter entirely. The trees along the Charles were thick with leaves, the air warm and sticky in that specific New England way that made everyone remember why they lived here. Eleanor stood in the nursery, the second bedroom they'd spent the last month painting a soft grey, folding tiny clothes that still didn't seem real, onesies with dinosaurs, socks smaller than her thumb, a stuffed elephant Nathaniel's mother had sent from Connecticut. She was 34 weeks now, exhausted, swollen. Her back hurt constantly and she'd given up on anything with buttons weeks ago, but she'd never felt more alive. The front door opened, footsteps in the hallway. "Elle?" Nathaniel's voice called. "In here." He appeared in the doorway, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He looked tired. They both were. But there was something lighter about him now, like he'd finally stopped bracing for disaster. "How was your day?" he asked. "Long? Yours?" "Same." He crossed the room, wrapped his arms around her from behind, hands settling on her stomach. "How's she doing?" "Active. I think she's training for a marathon in there." He smiled against her neck. "That's my girl." Eleanor leaned back into him, letting herself sink into the moment. 6 months ago, this would have seemed impossible, a fantasy she didn't dare hope for. Now it was just life. Messy. Complicated. Real. "I talked to HR today," Nathaniel said quietly. "Yeah?" "About parental leave. I'm taking 6 weeks when she's born." Eleanor turned to look at him. "You don't have to." "I want to." His voice was firm. "I'm not missing this, Elle, not any of it." Her throat tightened. "Okay. Besides, the company won't fall apart without me for 6 weeks. And if it does?" He shrugged. "Then it wasn't that solid to begin with." She smiled. "You've changed." "Yeah?" "Yeah?" "You're less." She searched for the word. "Rigid." That's what happens when your entire life gets turned upside down by a woman who trips over binders in conference rooms. Eleanor laughed, actually laughed. "That's your origin story? Really?" "It's the truth." He kissed her softly, then pulled back. "Come on," he said. "I brought dinner, that Thai place you've been craving." They ate on the couch, their couch now, not hers or his, with the windows open and the sounds of the city drifting in. Sirens, car horns, someone playing music down the street. "My mum wants to come up after the baby's born," Eleanor said between bites. "That's good." "For 2 weeks." Nathaniel paused mid-bite. "Ah, she means well." "I know. And she's excited. She keeps sending me articles about breastfeeding and sleep training and—" "Elle." He set down his fork. "It's fine. Your mom can stay as long as she wants." "Really? Really? She's family." He reached over, squeezed her hand. "This is what we're building. Family. All the messy, complicated parts of it." Eleanor's eyes burned. Damn hormones. "I love you," she said quietly. It was the first time she'd said it out loud. Nathaniel went still, then smiled. That real, unguarded smile she'd only started seeing a few months ago. "I love you too." The call came at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday in June. Eleanor woke to a sharp pain in her lower back, then another, then another. "Nathaniel." He was awake immediately. "What's wrong?" I think it's time." Everything after that was a blur. The drive to Mount Auburn Hospital, Nathaniel's hand gripping hers so tight it hurt, the fluorescent lights of the hospital, doctors and nurses speaking in calm, clinical tones that did nothing to slow her racing heart. Labor was long, painful, nothing like the books had described. But Nathaniel never left. He held her hand through every contraction, wiped her forehead when the sweat became too much, whispered things she couldn't quite hear but felt anyway, and when their daughter finally arrived, small and red-faced and screaming, Eleanor looked at Nathaniel and saw tears streaming down his face. "She's here," he whispered. "She's actually here." Eleanor couldn't speak, could only stare at the tiny human being placed on her chest, warm and solid and impossibly real. "Hi," she managed finally, voice breaking. "Hi, sweetheart." The baby stopped crying, blinked up at her with dark, unfocused eyes. Nathaniel leaned in, pressed a kiss to Eleanor's temple. "You did it. We did it." "Yeah." His voice was thick. "We did." 3 days later, they brought her home. Nathaniel carried the car seat like it was made of glass. Eleanor followed, exhausted and sore but unable to stop smiling. The apartment felt different now, fuller, like it had been waiting for this moment all along. They set the car seat down in the middle of the living room. Their daughter, Violet May, named after Eleanor's grandmother, slept peacefully, oblivious to the monumental shift she'd caused just by existing. "What do we do now?" Eleanor asked. Nathaniel laughed, actually laughed. "I have no idea." "Great, we're terrible at this already." "Probably." He wrapped an arm around her waist. "But we'll figure it out. Together. Together." They stood there for a long time, just watching Violet sleep. Outside, the city moved on, people going to work, living their lives. The world unchanged by what had happened in this small apartment. But for Eleanor and Nathaniel, everything had changed. The line they'd crossed 8 months ago, the one that had seemed so dangerous, so impossible, had led them here. To this moment. To this life. To each other. "I'm terrified," Eleanor admitted quietly. "Me too. But also—" "Yeah," Nathaniel finished. "Me too." Violet stirred, made a small sound. Eleanor bent down, carefully lifted her from the car seat. The weight of her, solid and warm and real, was overwhelming. "Hi, baby girl," Eleanor whispered. "Welcome home." Nathaniel stood beside her, one hand on Eleanor's back, the other gently touching Violet's tiny fist. And in that moment, exhausted and uncertain and more scared than they'd ever been, they were exactly where they needed to be. A final thought: love doesn't always arrive when it's convenient. Sometimes it shows up in the middle of your carefully planned life and turns everything sideways. Sometimes it asks you to be braver than you thought possible. Sometimes it comes with complications you never expected and challenges you didn't prepare for. But real love, the kind that lasts, isn't about perfect timing or easy circumstances. It's about showing up, being honest, choosing each other even when it's hard. Eleanor and Nathaniel didn't have a fairy tale beginning. They crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed. They faced judgment and fear and uncertainty, but they also chose courage over convenience. They chose truth over hiding. They chose each other. And in the end, that's what mattered. Because love isn't about avoiding the hard things, it's about walking through them together. A question for you: have you ever had to choose between what's safe and what's real? Between the life you planned and the one that found you? Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is say yes to something that scares us. Not because we know it'll work out, but because we know we'll regret it if we don't try. Eleanor and Nathaniel took that risk. What about you? Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your thoughts in the comments. So, what did you think? Did Nathaniel's vulnerability get you? Did Eleanor's strength inspire you? If you felt something, anything, while listening to this story, show some love. Hit like, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because the best stories are the ones we experience together. See you in the next one.